regular Planning Commission meeting to order, and if we would all rise and face the flag for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for that. Daniel, I'd like you to note the roll tonight, and Mr. Spiz has an excused absence.
Noted. Noel?
Pardon me?
Noted for Spiz.
No, okay, thank you. I need approval of the evening's agenda.
I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Chair, to approve tonight's agenda dated December 8, 2022.
I'll support.
We have a motion by Mr. Nolan, supported by Mr. Hunwick, to approve tonight's agenda for the regular meeting of, what meeting was it? December 8th, 2022. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I don't believe there's any conflicts of interest ex parte for this meeting tonight. If anyone has any, please designate it now. Seeing none, let's move on. We need approval of the minutes from the regular Planning Commission meeting dated 10/27/22.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the regular Planning Commission minutes, meeting minutes on October 27, 2022.
I'll support.
I'll second.
Okay.
Thank you.
I got Hunwick first, I think, before Mr. Bailey. I have a motion.
Right.
I have a motion by Mr. Nolden, seconded by Mr. Hunwick, for approval of the regular Planning Commission minutes of 10/27/22. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, next is if there's anyone here from the public tonight that would like to speak on something that's not on tonight's agenda, please do it now. Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to Commissioners' comments. Do we have any Commissioners' comments this evening? Mr. Turner, Mr. Ballard, anybody?
No, sir.
Seeing none, we'll move on. I have none at the moment. We have no public hearings. We don't have unfinished business, technically. This is new business coming up. And Mr. Butler, you're going to handle that up the podium then?
I am, Mr. Burke.
So we're going to have PC 22011 McLaren Oakland Medical Building final site plan. And if we could hear from the petitioner first.
Flip me over, Mr. Berger. Thank you kindly.
Yeah, I think she's got you. Did it work?
Almost. All right,
Look it up.
we're there. Sure. Good. Good evening. Jim Butler with PEA Group, here representing McLaren Oakland. As you recall, we were in front of you back on the 27th of October for preliminary site plan approval. We are here this evening asking for a final site plan approval. Kind of as a recap, the project overview, it's a new 50,000 square foot, 2-story building. It'll replace the existing 1-story building. The additional the parcel to the west was acquired and purchased by McLaren. The outpatient service within this building will be physical therapy, laboratory blood draw services, outpatient diagnostic and imaging, including a mobile MRI, freestanding emergency department, oncology and infusion center, and a McLaren Group, a third-party clinic, which will be housed on the second floor. Hours of operation for this building will generally be open from 7 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. Monday through Friday, and from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Saturday. The mobile MRI will operate on a scheduled as-needed basis, and the emergency department is anticipated to be a 24-hour operation, but it'll have restricted ability to access the existing building. Like I said, the site is located along the west side of Lapeer Road. It is bordered on the north by Goddard School, Flagstar Bank. To the west is a single-family subdivision, and to the south is the ITC service corridor. The project is comprised of 2 parcels, which will be combined. The parcels are zoned O, Office District, and the total parcel gross is 8.96 acres. The proposed building, like I said, is a 50,000 square foot building with an MRI dock located on the south side. Access will be to 2 existing exact access drives on Lapeer Road and another access drive on Gateway Drive. There is a one-way access drive, and I'll show you that on the site plan, to access the two drives between Lapeer Road. This is for emergency vehicles only. Parking for the project will be 265 parking spaces, which will include 16 ADA spaces. Stormwater management will be provided on site through an existing stormwater agreement, on and off site through an existing easement agreement. The plan is to keep the existing building during the construction of the facility, and the site plan also calls for 53 temporary parking spaces that'll be needed when the building is completed and the existing building is demolished. So here's the site plan. These are the 53 spaces that are gravel. This one access point from Lapeer, which is a one-way drive. Second access point, which is a one-way out. And then full access from Gateway Drive. There is this emergency access only to get to the ambulance port that is here. This is an image from the northwest corner. It's a perspective of the building. I think we saw this last time. Nothing's really changed on this. Same materials. A little closer shot from the emergency access point where the ambulance and ambulance center is in the emergency. Working our way along the front side of the building. That is the north elevation that you'll see. Still working. This is the kind of the north and the west elevation. The due east or west side elevation. And then finally, the elevation along the rear. This is that MRI port right here. It is a depressed dock here, but there is also a screen wall along with it. Plan changes since the last time we came in front of you. There was discussion about ADA spaces. Initially, we had 7 on the preliminary site plan. We have added 16 spaces, a total of 16 now. We added spaces here and additional spaces over here.
Write your questions down.
There was a comment related to the loading unloading zone. We kind of had it shown right here. So we just moved it to be out of the way to provide fire access around the building. And then finally, along the west side of the building, there was some concern about landscaping. We had only shown landscaping to be here. There's a pretty significant berm on the residential parcel, but we have added additional landscaping. We did review the comments from the planning and engineer consultants that you have. The site, from a net perspective, is 8.97 acres. That's taking out what is the Gateway Drive right-of-way or area. The net acreage for site is 6.9 acres, 6.9%. The existing stormwater easement is denoted on the plan. There is an agreement to allow for stormwater going from the west through the Goddard site all the way to the north by the Oxford Bank. So there's an easement in place for that. So the hours of operation, 7 a.m. to 7 on Monday through Friday, 7 p.m., and then from 8 to 1 on Saturday. The anticipated number of employees at this point, 64. In 5 years is what they're expecting that to grow to. I know there's a comment about a sound study from your attorney. Obviously, the nature of this business doesn't generate any appreciable sound, so we don't think one is necessary. There's also a comment related to the photometric plan. We can address those comments. We spoke with the consultant this morning, and the color temperature is about 3,500 K, which is within your ordinance. There's another comment related to lighting and management. We can offer to reduce that during off hour, and we'll show that on a revised plan. Listing of public improvements was noted in the attorneys. The only anticipated public improvements for this project is essentially the pathway along Lapeer Road, the extension of the water, and the cross connect between Lapeer Road and Gateway Drive. And then finally, one of the comments was related to a cost estimate included. We can certainly include that as a part of the engineering approval. So with that, if you have any questions, I'm here to answer it. We have a representative from McLaren and the owner's rep.
Let's start down there. You have any questions, Mr. Turner?
Yes. Will there be hours of operation on Sunday, or will
No.
it be closed completely?
Well, the emergency center is 24 hours, but the general clinic is from 7:30 to 7:30, and then Saturday morning.
But the emergency area is 24/7, 7 days.
Yes.
That's correct.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Ballard?
I'm all set for right this second.
Mr. Bailey?
I'm good. You answered all mine.
I'm set for it now.
I'm gonna ask Ed, and then I have a couple questions.
No, I'm good. That's what it's gonna look like, right?
Yes, absolutely. This is their brand standard.
It'll probably be more to Mr. Sharp in the next question comment, but the stormwater easement to the north that you talked about now, is that to the north side of the existing lot that the bank has there, that pocket that's in there?
Well, there's an easement on the back side of Goddard School. When we did the Goddard School project,
Yeah.
we had to provide underground detention.
Oh, it's
'Cause
underground.
What was funny
I was
was
out there and
when,
I couldn't
when,
quite understand
when
what
Mr.
was-
Guy did this development,
Jim Guy.
he only allowed the road and Oxford Bank and a part of the McLaren site to go undetained. This site, which is Fagstar,
Yeah.
and Goddard School had to
Yeah.
provide their own detention.
Yeah, that confused me because I drove out there and I couldn't quite figure out what was going on. So technically there is an easement to get to the north then.
Yeah, there's a 24-inch pipe that we installed to get to the basin.
Okay.
And the basin outlets at this corner underneath about 3 different pine trees and eventually goes out.
That's the one
Towards
I was
golf
trying to
course.
talk about, that pocket that's kind of outside from that lot there, the parking lot from
Right here?
the bank. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a detention basin.
And then it goes from there to the north again?
It goes to the north across the Boulder Point, I think dunes number 9, or plus number 9.
Jim's probably already looking at that, but, okay. So then, I think, and he answered hours of operation. Let me ask one other question real quickly because we're not to it yet, but the site photometric plan that's on there, because we had a citizen that was concerned about where they live on Franklin Wright Boulevard, to the west of this project, their backyard's the east of their lot, like lot 60, 61.
Right in here. Yep, the Herricks.
Now their concern was, now wait a minute, you're wrong. Like where the, go more towards the corner. I could do it on mine, but then when you come back down, so where they're gonna have lighting, they didn't want light on their second story bedrooms. They don't want they don't want night lights. So we won't have any light leaving that property along those sections where those residential lots come into this, right?
No, I mean, obviously there's a pretty good distance between here and the property line. This will not be lit.
Well, we have an ordinance for lighting,
Yeah,
so
and of
you're
course,
gonna
everything has to be shielded and there's a certain
so-
foot candle.
Yeah, a half a foot candle at the property line, so we
Right.
should be okay, right? All right, I just want to make sure, because they had a concern, and
Yep.
I want to make sure we help address that concern.
Of course.
And I believe you've already answered one of their other concerns by planting additional trees, and I did look at the landscape plan earlier this evening, or prior to coming here. So I think a lot of the things have been met that the township was looking for, so, I guess I don't really have a lot of any other questions right now. We probably have to let Zach do his thing and Mr.
course.
Sharp do his thing and do the rest, and you'll have to punch that off for a minute.
I don't have anything to hook up here. Thank you for letting me do my thing. I appreciate it. So this is relatively fresh. I'm going to try to do the quick Reader's Digest version. Let me know if you want any additional details. So this is considered, it's not considered a hotel or a hospital by your zoning ordinance, or a hotel either. It's considered just a medical clinic. The main difference is your zoning ordinance says you can't stay more than 24 hours in it. If you stay more than 24 hours, it becomes a hotel. So it is consistent with what you can use in the zoning district. It's just a permitted use. For developmental standards, the proposed building and site work meets the setbacks, the height, and all those things. They mentioned there's the weird quirk in how you guys measure lot area. You don't include right-of-way, so gateway right-of-way. They've calculated it. And the lot coverage would be recalculated, so that'd just be something we'd like to see on the final site plan. For access and circulation, already mentioned that it will use the existing 3 access points for motor vehicles. It will have a sidewalk from the redone safety path to the main door. One thing that's in the final site plan that wasn't in the original, and there's also going to be a spot to park your bicycle and lock it up if you want to ride your bike there. The thing that we bring for your discussion for access and circulation are there are a couple of the radiuses on some of the islands as you're inbound that are kind of generous. And the reason why we mentioned considering making those smaller radius is that it's a very important cue to drivers that you should be going slower. If you have a big sweeping radius, people just feel more comfortable going fast. So that's something that we bring to your attention. For parking and loading, the minimum parking spaces for this building would be 200. So they're above that. As planners, we always recommend that if you're significantly over, that you consider deferring. You don't have a requirement that they have to, but we bring that up. The setbacks for parking is okay. The thing for parking for you to discuss, deliberate, make a determination on is there are some parking spaces that are only 18.5 feet deep. They're along landscaping. Your zoning ordinance says minimum length is 20 feet, except the Planning Commission can approve a reduction down as far as 18 feet as long as there's a curb. And if it's next to landscaping, the overhanging vehicles can't disturb the landscaping, so if there's a hedgerow or trees or something like that, they have to be outside the 2 feet. If it's adjacent to sidewalk, the sidewalk has to be at least 7 feet, so if there's overhang, you still have 5 feet of sidewalk. And from our review, in all the areas where it's proposed to be 18.5 feet, it meets that standard. One thing I'd love to point out is the parking spaces at the very end of the rows are 6 inches wider, which is really nice because when you turn in, you get that little extra space and you don't feel too tight. For essential services, there are electrical lines on the eastern, southern, and western property lines. There is a lot of proposed landscaping there, but it appears that there's adequate space, so it won't grow into it. There is a transformer and generator on the eastern side of the building towards M24 Lapeer. It is screened with a wall, which is what you require. There's a dumpster also in that area. The dumpster enclosure materials match the building, and it will also be screened. We've mentioned that we have the off-site stormwater easement information. I remember attorneys always want to have reference to the library and page number, so if there's ever any question, we can pull it out very quickly. And we have that. Just need to make sure it's referenced with the library page and all that good stuff there. For landscaping and screening, 10 trees are going to be preserved. A lot of trees are going to be removed because they grew up in what was supposed to be the stormwater detention pond or retention pond. They're proposing to plant 78 shade and ornamental trees, 35 evergreens, and 126 shrubs. As mentioned, they are adding additional evergreen screening where it's adjacent to the residential properties. So there's no more waiver that was discussed previously at preliminary site plan. The landscaping meets your standards. For lighting, the things that we bring to your attention is that along the front lot line, there are a couple places where the photometric plans predicts that the light intensity is going to be more than what you allow. Your zoning ordinance says it along the front lot line, which isn't the same as the road, but back where the right-of-way is, the maximum you can do is 1 foot candle. There are a couple spots where it's 3.2 predicted. So there are ways you can wiggle with that. You can put extra shielding or move the fixtures in a bit. They're going to have to figure out how to get it to the 3.2. As mentioned, the light fixtures exterior are proposed to be LEDs. Your zoning ordinance doesn't allow LEDs, but in the past what the Planning Commission has done is allowed LEDs as long as the color temperature is consistent with the light bulbs that you do allow, which is between 2,400 Kelvin and 3,500 Kelvin. So what they've confirmed now that it's be consistent. So we just recommend that in the final site plan that gets approved, there's a note that says maximum color temperature 3,500 because you can get them in the range. Mentioned that the entire facility won't be open 24 hours a day, so there will have to be some dimming or turning off of some of the exterior lights. Just a detail to be added to the final plan. For signage, there are a bunch of traffic directing signs throughout the site that are consistent with the manual on uniform traffic control devices. It does show there's a freestanding sign along M24 that meets the required setbacks. It's not in the clear vision area. For that sign and the sign on the building, the signs on the building, we don't have the dimensional information, so we can't confirm if it meets all the standards. But that's something that they can do as part of the building permit process where they bring in the details to that. Let's see. So the quick hit things for you to touch is if you're comfortable with the parking being 18 and a half feet in a couple of those locations instead of 20. And then this is a newer thing for your zoning ordinance is development agreement. So you guys are the final stop for the site plan, but it's hardwired in that with the site plan, the township board can require a development agreement. Or they can waive it if certain criteria are true. If you're interested, you can make a recommendation to them, or you can stay silent on it. And that's all that I've got.
Are there any questions from anybody at this time? For Zach? Go ahead, Mr. Nolan.
Can you explain what this development agreement?
Yep. So development agreements are a way to kind of set expectations and boundaries and responsibilities for projects. It's typical things in there are outlining what performance guarantees are and when they could be released. So think of like a large residential development where you'd say we're going to release half the money for the roads when the wear course is down, or those types of check marks. We're going to release the trees, 50% of the tree money the first year, and the second year we're going to come back and release half of it. So it's a way to set the expectations on when the money goes out. You can also in there put the hours during construction. You can have expectations about where construction traffic goes in. Not so big a deal on this one because it's right on 24. Let's see. If there are other improvements, like if there were curb improvements or passing lane, that's a place where you could document it. It's basically the contract between the township through the township board and the developer outlining the specific things that you want to have happen. It's really important for larger projects like site condominiums because you have a clear path of the other expectations that have to happen. For smaller projects, it may be a bit much because if there's a problem with landscaping or parking, your ultimate stick is we don't issue the certificate of occupancy until this is done. So that's why there's the waiver option in there for smaller projects that the township board can say we're not interested in this.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Well, the things that you've mentioned, we have ordinances on hours of operation for building, and we have the traffic flow is M24. They only have they have three choices there. They don't have to use all three or part of them, however their construction is. So, in your opinion, do we feel that we need to get involved with this?
Let me ask a question real quickly.
Okay. I'll stall while I'm thinking of his answer.
He brought up something. So the determination of any developmental agreement that's established is done at this point by the township board.
Correct.
So what Mr. Knoll, I think, this is not for us at the PC level to do this, but like say hours of operation because there's neighbors that are residents living directly behind it, they might want to shut it down at a different time slot than what the ordinance permits. So these alternate things or modifications to what we already have in place, which he's made comment to, could then be again established by the township board. So I just want to make reference to that.
And that's where I was going with this. We already have them in place.
Right.
So I don't feel right now we need anything more unless Mr. Butler would like to have some.
But that's not. Well, that's a determination whether you want to make a recommendation to the township board as such. Okay.
I understand.
So there may be a case, so you've got your hours when construction can normally happen. There may be a case where there's construction next to a place of worship. And you may say, we don't want you to be doing construction during this window. So it allows you to tailor
that's a good example.
It was
site-specific.
a good example. I was just trying to understand both sides of it, and we're
Yep.
good. I'm fine with it.
Just a quick question before I forget.
Yes, Mr. Hunwick.
Are they going to seek a traffic light in front?
I would
No?
defer to Mr. Sharp, but I don't think that would be likely. MDOT doesn't like to put more lights.
I didn't know what the requirements were. What if it becomes a full-stage hospital? Does a traffic light have to go there?
At that point, there would be a traffic study to determine.
So it's not a given that a traffic light has to be there?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And MDOT is on their main trunk loads lines. They really would not like to have as many lights as possible.
Yeah, I get that, yeah.
So to the answer for the development agreement, you guys, if you really think it's not important for a project, you can make a recommendation to the township board to not do it, or you can say we think it's really important because there are all these really tricky things on the site, or you can just be silent and let the township board decide on its own.
I have one quick question, maybe while you're still here. We talked about adding additional trees. What would be a typical height of those trees that are required on that plan?
So there's a minimum planting height. It's
Yeah.
usually 6 feet for the
I
evergreens.
just want it known, like I want it out loud.
Yep. So it's not a tiny tree. Personally, I'd be okay with 5-foot trees because they tend to establish more quickly and get growing a little bit bigger. But your zoning ordinance says they have to
6
be
feet.
6 feet when they come in, and after a certain number of seasons, there's a percent of the area that has to be screened. Which reminds me, the questions from the neighbors is if you look at the photometric plan, the foot candles, the amount of illumination put out along that property line there is 0. There are no light fixtures near it, so it's a long, long way. You do have a maximum height for the light fixtures, and you require full cutoff angle. So the bottom of the light fixture, the light has to be up on top of that.
These are not intruding into the upper portion of that vertically either, right?
Correct.
We don't have any light intrusion going upward.
Correct.
Right.
And that's per your ordinance, and
Right.
it's
So
consistent with the specs.
I feel
they have.
comfortable on that part for the comment because they have to comply to the ordinance in regards to
Yep.
that for the photoelectric. That's probably all I have at this point in time for question. Because I did have a note about lighting type, but you just made comment to it. And then the establishment of the development agreement is actually whether we feel it's necessary to take it to the township board or not.
Well, it goes to the township board by default, but you
Not-
guys can offer a recommendation.
Well, I get that. But if we wanted to make that recommendation to them, we would announce it out loud at the time we make the motion. Okay. I guess, Mr. Sharp, you're going to be next on this list, and I think you're right underneath this guy, so let me see if I can just keep going. There we are.
All right, there we go. Got our letter. It's dated November 29th. There was a red line set of drawings.
Yeah, it's at the end of all your documents, though.
I'll just
Do you want me to get to that point now, or?
no,
Okay.
the highlights real quick. If you have any questions, it's pretty simple. Just I won't go through all these items. Again, the parcel combination, that needs to be completed as part of the site plan. With regards to the sanitary sewer and the water main, there's availability of those public utilities, so no problems there. The storm sewer, Mr. Butler alluded, there's actually, you got the pond that they're creating on the south side next to the the south side next to the ITC corridor, and then the existing pond behind Goddard School, which, to be honest, been back there many times, never seen water in it. So, yeah, exactly, and that's what they're proposing on their site as well. So, other than figuring out the calculations and just getting everything in order for the engineering drawings, I don't see any problems with that. Need some pre-treatment devices and things so that you're not getting silts and sediments and things into the bottom because they are percolation. We don't want that to be choked off. So we are requiring some of those items as well during the engineering phase. With regards to the pavement, sidewalks, and curbing, again, the access to to Gateway Drive. There's a current easement agreement in place with those property owners. They're obviously adding the McLaren site to it. It's my understanding that they have approached those property owners to either rework the easement agreement between them because part of the medical facility could theoretically access out the back side of that. But also there has been some very preliminary discussions that they may try to convey this road over to the road commission as well. Don't know which way it's going to go, but it's either going to have to go road commission or it's going to have to, the agreement between all the parties would have to be amended. So,
So you're talking about all the people on that road?
correct, which would be the
Goddard
Oxford
and
Bank,
the-
Goddard, and Flagstar.
Yeah.
Yep, and then the piece to the west that they're acquiring, that was also part of the easement agreement. The site that McLaren sits on currently is not, and so that's why it needs to be amended, just to allow for that. But I'm confident that they'll be able to work through that as well. And that's really about all that we had. The rest of the items can be addressed during the engineering phase. So,
Is Gateway a private drive that those businesses are responsible for the maintenance and repair and all that?
that is correct, and that is part of the, I'm assuming part of the negotiations is, okay, if McLaren's going to be using this roadway more, then what's their responsibility going to be? Usually it's a percentage of either road frontage or land area or something, so that's probably what needs to be changed. So with that, are there any other questions?
I do have, then quickly getting back to that, so then a description of maintenance for that roadway then has to be reestablished between all the parties on that roadway, right?
Looks like Mr. Butler wants to speak to
Well, I
that.
think, well, he probably has the answer.
Exactly.
I do. Obviously the portion of Gateway Drive is owned by McLaren. It's governed through an access easement, and there's a maintenance agreement between all the parties.
Yeah, that's what
Be it
I'm,
Flagstar Bank, be it Oxford, be it Goddard School.
four.
Again, it's a squirrely agreement as well, very much like the stormwater agreement. Until McLaren is developed, McLaren doesn't pay anything into it. So when they are developed, then they start paying their fair share.
is that on final approval?
It's when they finally
Okay.
get certificate of occupancy. It's a very interesting agreement.
That's on this 50,000 square foot building, right?
Yes.
It doesn't have anything to do with what future use would do to it then?
It's just this numerator. It ends up being numerator denominator.
Right, okay, I got it. I just
I
want
think the
to,
benefit what it's gonna do once it's developed. The people like Goddard, the people like Oxford, the people like Flagstar, their percentage would obviously go down because of the land,
yeah, I get
the land
that.
mass.
It doesn't affect the townships
No.
per se, but it
Township
does.
is a part of the agreement.
But it's a civil matter between all the parties
Exactly.
that are on it.
Exactly.
I get that. Which makes more sense. It's their problem, not ours. All right, I believe we're doing good. Does anybody have any questions for
No, I think.
Mr. Sharp? Are you done, Ed, or
I just
got-
lost my question. I
you're
had a
down here
question.
taking a nap on me?
No,
so-
I had a question in my head. I just wanted to. Oh, I know what the question
Oh,
is.
yeah, that's a question.
Maybe it's for Mr. Michelle, but when they get the facility up and running, do they have to get approval to tear down the other one? Or is this all going to be one big package? They can tear it down at their discretion.
It's, so that may be something good for a development agreement that says this other building shall be torn down within a certain amount of time. Now, practicality states they don't want to have.
Right, but do they have to come to get more permission to take that building down? They got to get
Not
permission.
to you, but to the township
Yeah.
for disposal. We make sure that,
Demolition permits of the building, those types of things, through the building department.
yeah, so that, we check to make sure it's disconnected from utilities and those types of things, that it's stabilized and secure.
Well, let's get back to his earlier part of his question. Like, when does that happen? Is that up to us to decide that at this point in time? I don't think so.
Right now,
Because
it's-
right now, they can't occupy until they get their site in a position to make it occupiable by parking spaces and handicap and all the rest. Now, where that building sits, it's kind of to the southern portion of the property. They've moved it down so they can build it and get it going under construction and still leave. You have to kind of look at the plans where it shows the old, there's the building the way it sits right now. This is the building here, and the property lines are down this way, right here. No, I'm sorry. Where's my damn entrance ways? Oh, they're right
Bottom,
here.
at the
Here's
bottom.
one. Here's one of them, and here's the other one over here at this point right here. So this building runs parallel with this property line right here. So this is kind of out of the way far enough, but you're right. We got to get it out of there at some point, or we're not going to give a C of O for this guy over here yet. So it's going to probably be more determined by the building department. I mean, I don't want to say it that way, but that's where a lot of the weight's going to go.
There are a couple different ways to handle it. There will be, with the temporary parking, they would be able to operate the other building. Not, it may be inconvenient to do it full capacity, because folks don't want to park on the gravel. But there are a couple ways to address it. If it were a more complex project, we may have said you're going to show your phasing and say this phase is going to happen in these
Yeah.
months and this phase happens in those.
I think that justifiably, and I'm not speaking for the McLaren people or group, but they're going to want that thing off there as soon as they can get it off there to make it work for their benefit. So, I mean, otherwise, it is a hindering factor that's kind of lingering there for them. They don't want it there.
It's kind of big.
So it's, we all want it gone because the way the drives work, this drive comes in right here. This is our in drive. This is our exit drive. And this is all kind of in the way to start using the building that's way over here. So I get it. I just want to make sure we're kind of all on the same page with how it works for
I guess one of the
occupancy.
things I wanted to know was there's not going to be a roadblock in the way to stop them from tearing it down.
No,
No.
no, there will not be a roadblock in the way. They don't have to come back.
It's quite a bit of work to take that building out of there, believe
It's
it
going to
or
be
not.
tricky just because I'm sure that they're going to construct the building. It actually comes pretty close to the existing buildings.
Well, I'm
Now,
not talking
Yeah,
about
right here.
the
Right here it does.
the demolition process. I'm talking about the political and the administrative process. and
no,
the-
no.
oh, so
I
when
wanna
they're
make
going to
sure
move
that
all,
they're
they're
not-
probably going to move from one
they're not
building
gonna
to
have
the
any
other.
roadblocks where they go, hey, wait a minute, you didn't do this or didn't do that.
I don't know.
It's probably one of the easiest things you can do. We basically want confirmation from utilities that it's no longer hooked up to power or water.
Yep.
Right, but that goes without saying. But that's not a roadblock. That's just formality.
Those are good comments. I'm kind of with you on it. I mean, I feel like that's part of it too. Because here's how it works. Here's the building right here now, and you guys see this exit way right here, and you see the entrance way over here, and there's
Scroll
where the building is.
Between
right
the
there.
two, you can see that the existing building is just to the north of that driveway, and the new building is just to the south. It's going to be a little tricky, but nothing that can't be
Like
accomplished.
GEQ, whatever they call themselves now.
Nope.
No, okay.
No, they're
No
not
Eagle,
involved. They're
no
not involved.
MDOT.
Eagle, there you go.
No, they're not
Nothing
involved
like
in
that.
I don't know. I'm
No,
just
that-
asking the question.
No, they're not involved in that part.
I mean, to be honest, in a perfect world, we'd love to just have the building ready to go.
Oh,
They tear it down next day, move
absolutely.
in, right?
Oh yeah.
We all know there's probably going to be some sort of lapse in that point in time. It's just the way it is. And the real beauty and the art and science of construction will take over here. The contractor's going to have to figure out how to do that. That's where the real challenge in this
Well, there's some
project is.
staging that's going to
Yes.
take place. I just don't know how it's,
installations and everything,
Oh, yeah.
making that all work. That's going to be the real challenge.
they're going
Yeah,
to
maybe
probably
a
want to get a TCO and then probably work from that.
Potentially.
And that's a bond too, so that
Right.
kind of guarantees the other part of it. So when you do the TCO, we'll get a performance guarantee and we'll go from that. But let's
And-
not get. I don't want to get into that too much.
No,
tonight.
we don't want to. That's that's the art and science of building, right? Regarding the development agreement, just my 2 cents on that. We've done development agreements. We've never done it really for a by rights site plan with no variances, no waivers.
Well, they're usually like PUD.
Usually, you want to memorialize that. I know with PUDs, since there are waivers and there's all bunch of stuff that goes in there. Again, we're not opposed to it, but in this, it's really by rights and it's pretty simple. My perspective.
Everybody all set so far?
Yes, sir.
Everybody's good. Thinking.
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks, Jimmy. I think at the end of yours here, that goes a little bit more. We have the Kelly firm letter. Did everybody take a chance to read the letter from the attorney? Based on what I read, and I read it a couple of times actually, she's just mentioning the outstanding issues are right here as you go down through them. And then when you get a little further down, when she talks about, in our opinion, the final site plan approval should be conditioned upon the approval of all the other proposed combination and developer entering into the development agreement. See, this is where the attorney wrote it right here. On the development entering into a developmental agreement, unless waived by the township board. So that's the determination where we can slip that in as part of the motion or not, and it still goes to the township board. If the township board then decides they want to do it, let them do it. I don't want to be part of it as the PC, just speaking for myself right now. So I'm with Mr. Butler in a way. I don't know that it's necessary for us to make that recommendation. And then the other one would be to move by resolution for these issues. So if everybody's read that letter, then we are all on track. That's in our meeting schedule coming up next. Mr. Knoll.
I've got a couple things. I don't think we need that development agreement. The second thing is that thank you, Mr. Butler, for putting in the additional handicap.
Yeah, that was great.
My only question is the way we could balance it in the parking lot, because we've got them all on the west side. If they could come over a little bit. I don't know what entrances are and how that accessibility is, but I'm very thankful just to
Oh,
have them.
gosh, you want me to go back to this site plan?
Can you flip, Mr. Berger? I appreciate that.
I can probably sneak in there, just give me a
Okay,
second.
thank you very kindly.
Where's it at? It's on somewhere around.
Something like that. Got a good plan.
Right about here to start, I think. Just
Again, I'm very appreciative of the additional handicap spaces.
I'm too large for that component right now.
Tom and I might need them sometime.
Don't even start on
You wanna
me.
flip to me, Mr. Berger? I
I need them
can-
now almost. I think they're in this plan if I zoom it up a little bit. So right here's where he's talking. So this is
Yeah,
the quadrant.
and if you want to zoom out just a little bit more,
Take
there
it
are
down.
some additional
You want me to
spaces.
go in or out?
Go out.
Out.
All right, perfect. We added some additional spaces. You see where that crosswalk is?
Yeah.
Down
Yeah.
there. So we added some more spaces there. Right there.
Here.
Mr. Knoll. Yep.
And then we run up this
We
way.
have all those spaces. Yep.
That was only a comment.
I appreciate.
The second thing is that in many of the different meetings I've had, electric vehicle charging stations have come up. And the township's going to look into some ordinances in regards to that. And I'd just like to throw out if the McLaren would like to jump on board and put some of those in right up front, that would be wonderful out in that quadrant area to work with the building and things. But you'll be the trendsetters for it because it will be coming, as we all know. But that would be wonderful to have some EV charging stations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Woodard.
I think that got us to where we answered his questions regarding all of this. So I think we're going to probably be ready for a motion from somebody.
If I may.
Oh, yes, sir.
I know the question came up related to parking, and we are exceeding the ordinance by approximately 65 spaces. We are willing to defer some of that parking. The natural place for us is essentially in here.
On this,
Yeah, right in there. Yep.
somewhere there.
That was somewhere in that field to the north would be where we would look.
Going
at doing
north
that.
this way.
Yeah. So I don't know if we need to, if that needs to be a part of the approval,
I'm trying
or
to
we
get
can
us there a
handle it in
little bit.
construction. I'm not sure how
That's
we.
how it
want-
kind of goes to the north.
Yeah. So essentially, kind of in that area at the northeast corner would be kind of the area where we'd look at.
I'm the guy that wouldn't park right there.
No. So we would eliminate a lot of that and probably those three.
But maybe somebody that really cares about their vehicle might.
Perhaps.
But, I thought it was pretty well laid out. And when you added the extra stuff, which I noticed it was all right through here, even if you have to walk a little bit, you're still right to the building here. Because this is that little circular portion right there on the main entranceway.
Right, and the physical therapy part of the building is
Down
that
this
west
way.
side.
Yeah.
Is it?
So it looks good to me.
Having had someone going through physical therapy right now in my house, I understand why they're there.
You're lucky it's not you, is what you're saying.
Not me.
Yeah,
at
it's
this
not.
point,
It's not you. Good. Your knees are okay.
I'm good, Tom.
Are you saying you want to? You're having second thoughts about?
Well,
maybe-
we would certainly consider reducing those.
Well, let me get to
down
it
to-
before you answer that any further. There is property that could still be developed on this
Yes.
parcel of land.
Yes.
So I don't know that I want to take any less of what you've already given us because of what could be developed in the future. Are you saying there's enough parking then to develop more in the future and add additional parking?
Well, I think in the
You would
future,
probably combine it all.
I think in the future there would probably be that need. I mean, for additional parking, if you look at the available land to the
Yeah,
west,
yeah.
I think there would be a need probably to install that parking when it develops as a phase 2, perhaps. Because you look at the land.
Well, this
right?
is all the gravel area.
Right. So you would extend a field, keep going to the north.
Right, up
I
in
don't
here.
know if let's say you put another 50,000 square foot building in, you probably would need that parking.
Then you would need it. Well,
Probably.
that's why I'm saying I don't want to deter from taking it away now. I'd rather leave it at the two. It was quoted 265.
65 is what's being
Yeah, I
requested.
wrote it down to make sure I got it right in my head. So I think if we did something in the future, then with extra square footage on the development of the property, we would need that parking to be part of that combination.
Agreed.
So I'm good where it's at. I don't know about anybody else.
If he wants to leave it in, that's fine.
I'm
Okay.
fine with it. Thank you.
Now I think we're ready for maybe someone to start putting something together in a motion
Mr. Chair.
format. Yes.
I believe we still have Chief Schultz. that
Oh,
needs
I
to-
apologize. And Mr. Schultz, the reason
This is his last
and
meeting.
Mr.
too.
Schultz, I apologize because the reason that I didn't have you on my
Right.
flash drive because we didn't get the documentation until really today.
Correct. There was nothing,
That's it. We
everything
do all
that we had
have
asked
it.
before that they had already included in the drawings and everything.
Right.
So I was good with everything at that point. So again, I want to thank them for the completeness of the plan starting from the very beginning. It was one of the more well-organized ones that we've had to review in a long
Yeah.
time. I think he's probably done a review for the township at one point in time, so kind of knew what we were, what we're looking for. But it makes a big difference when it comes in, and definitely speeds the process up. So I want to thank him for that. Good job for it. So,
Yeah, I'm glad that someone brought that to my attention that you're sitting in the audience. And this isn't going to be your last meeting. Are you going to make the 22nd?
Is there a meeting on the 22nd?
Yes, there is. Well, no, I would like to make, if you're not,
He was going to make
in recognition to your time and all the things that you've done for the community in the past and how many years you have in service, I mean, I certainly want to make sure we make note of that. If you're not at the next meeting, we should do it all now from the previous members that are on the board. But we did get a note from Cheryl today from Mr. France that talked about he's okay with everything and approves the final site plan. But it's based on what your information was from your original document when they came in with a preliminary site plan. So good, thank you for your comment. I think maybe now we're approaching that, we're at the end here, so who wants it?
I guess I
Mr.
will.
Bailey.
Move to approve the resolution to grant final site plan approval for the Planning Commission file number 22-0017, known by the project name McLaren Oakland Medical Building Final Site Plan Review, conditioned upon the following being completed by the applicant. Number one, applicant providing the information required by the Township zoning ordinance as set forth in the report submitted by Township consultants, the Fire Department, and the Township Administration. Number two, applicant's submittal of revised plans addressing stated deficiencies in reports submitted by Township consultants, the Township Fire Department, and Township Administration. And number three, approval of the proposed lot combination as depicted in the final site plan.
A second?
I have a motion by Mr. Bailey and seconded by Mr. Nold. Are there any, and this is time for discussion, are there any concerns that anybody wants to discuss regarding this motion at this time?
No.
Okay, I see none. I would like a roll call vote.
And
Oh, you have concerns.
Clarify for staff, the planning commission is comfortable with the 18 and a half feet parking spaces.
We should have noted that.
But we have the tape, we'll document it in the resolution that was referenced in there. And the planning commission wants to remain silent on development agreement and let the
Because we have the ability to waive that from the original 20 feet to 18 and a half, we're making comment to make sure that's noted for the future. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. So now I think we're ready for a roll call.
Bailey?
yes.
Unwick?
Yes.
Ballard?
Yes.
Turner?
Yes.
Knoll?
Yes.
Berger?
Yes. Thank you so much, everybody,
Thank you.
for bringing this
Very,
forward.
very much.
We really appreciate it, and we
course.
appreciate your time and effort. I think it went quite nicely myself. Where am I at here? My last thing was supposed to be somewhere down here. I'm going to get us right to, we're going to move into the B component here, but give me 1 second. I think it's on,
It's the last page. 15.
I'm looking for it. I'm trying to pull that little bugger up.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you.
so much. Should be here somewhere. Oh, it's underneath this. Here's our 2023 meeting schedule. And I looked it over, and it just kind of duplicates everything that we're currently under.
Do we need a motion for this, Mr. Chair?
I think if we,
Isn't it in our
I don't know.
township
I don't.
ordinances that we meet on these
I don't think
particular
we
dates?
need to vote.
I
on
don't
this.
think we need to vote on it. I just think we need to say, here it is. We got it on the agenda. This is our schedule of meetings for 2023. And does anybody have any questions? Now, this particular November, just to make comment, the reason we didn't have a meeting in November was because the notification of documents that would have had to have been out prior 15 days from that meeting date did not work for us. So we couldn't do it, and we don't meet on Thanksgiving Day. So it pushed us into this meeting, technically, if we were going to have any other information on tonight's agenda, which we didn't have to have. But we do have information on the 22nd coming up for another meeting date in the future. So I'm good with this. It's
See,
Ed, Mr. on Chair.
December 28th already.
right here. Yeah, that's a good one, isn't it? But that might not happen. Yes, ma'am.
If I may interject, in previous board meetings, they do acknowledge their 2023 schedules and do some sort of motion to acknowledge it.
Yeah, the township board.
As well as Parks and Rec.
Oh, okay.
They
I
do
don't.
that too. I just wanted to.
They're a
give you that
separate. They
information
have their
so you
own.
can
They're a
decide
separate entity,
if
right?
you wanted
Okay.
to acknowledge the schedule for next year.
I would like to acknowledge the schedule for next year.
Okay.
Thank you. That, I think, brings us to a point of communications, and I don't know that we have too much on any of the, does anybody want to talk about the ORC? Oh, that's not first, is it? It's economic development. But we haven't heard from anybody from economic development for quite some time, so. Do we have anything from economic development?
We
Does
don't even
anybody?
have a full committee.
Pardon me?
I don't think we have a full committee, do we?
Well, I don't know that yet at this moment, right on the top of my head.
Because
I thought we have a full. Oh, you mean we haven't appointed a full committee?
well, the young lady that just left the board,
Meg?
Meg, she was
Knopf?
no,
Who? Oh, the other lady.
from the from
From the
village-
township.
from the well, she was on the township board,
Ashley.
I guess.
Ashley.
Ashley.
Right.
Ashley.
She was on the committee, and then she was actually the chair, and then she resigned
Oh,
because there was too much.
so there were 3 members altogether, right?
right, me,
So-
Mr. Spiz, and
Okay, so
Ashley.
then I guess when January gets here, we better appoint one. We better get one. Well, thank you, Ed. Okay. Anybody want to talk about ORC, John? You want to talk about ORC?
Yeah, I'll just hit it real briefly. Zach, you stood up.
Yeah, I can too. All right,
Okay.
so your ORC group has met 18 times this year, which is quite a bit. You've been very busy beavers on it. We are planning on the 22nd having a public hearing, it's been noticed, for the second batch of zoning text amendments this year. The big headliner is that we've got the commercial plan unit development article, and we're making some revisions to the residential based on attorney recommendations for that. We have language for long driveways to make sure they're accessible for fire apparatus and posting of addresses in there. We have clarifying language and expanding language for things that can project into required setbacks, so clarifying how far overhangs and gas heaters, the fireplaces things can bump out. We've added language for handicap ramps for residential, that they can go into the setbacks if it's not possible to put it in other places. So it's been quite a bit of good work from that group. So public hearing on the 22nd, and it'll be exciting.
So, a quick question. Now that you're making the comments, and I was at the last ORC meeting. The part about the non-residential PUD, has that been critiqued by the attorney yet?
Yep.
So we have the language that she now wants
Yep.
in that. So that should be ready then for that meeting, for
Absolutely,
that public
yeah.
hearing. It'll be in the right state to be ready for
Yep.
that.
The
Okay,
the
that's-
only thing the attorney's working on is we have to be mindful how we approach the legally non-conforming driveways and legally non-conforming addresses. So she's doing some fancy legal stuff to get that compliant.
Okay, but that's outside of the actual non-residential PUD.
Correct.
Yeah,
That they're
okay.
bundled together with it.
That's the most important one to me. I think we need, those two PUD ordinances are very important, I think, for the community.
Yep.
And once we get those in place, it should help developers come on board to come up with hopefully some agreements with everybody to put some projects together.
And for those of you who were at the beginning of last year and we had that huge list of all the things we wanted to do in 2022, we've done all of them except for signs. But that's because previous township attorneys said don't touch that. But we did everything in the Group 1 list of things, including 425 zoning map amendments, which is the largest I've heard from anywhere doing, aside from adopting a whole new zoning map. And we even got things on Group 2 this year. So,
Well, I think we did really well, and I think
Yep.
what we have we've been hesitant about was on the signage was only because of legal documentation there. But I think our wording is now to move forward and start working on the signing,
Yep.
the sign ordinance to make modifications to it, and hopefully we'll get that knocked out. And I think we've done pretty well for the township, in my opinion.
So the look forward is ORC does have a meeting on the 22nd also, and we'll be preparing the 2023 work list or priority list for this body then to look at and see the things that you like, you don't like, which then gets forwarded to the township board to approve
Right.
funding for that.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, I guess you're up there. Do you have any comments other than what you want to talk about ORC and all that?
We have no real exciting planning stuff going on. One thing from the state to be alert to, and this will show up on the priority list, is the state legislature changed the capacity for certain state licensed residential facilities.
They changed the amount of occupants
They
allowed in those.
increased the occupancy on a couple of those, so we're going to have to go through and change that to.
Well, they did it to try and make it more affordable, I think, for people to be housed in those places. And that's what the potential of that whole bill was about. But I don't know that I'm really for. We can't talk about that right now. Yeah, you're right. They are making changes. Mr. Sharp?
Yeah, just a couple things to update you on. All your provisioning centers, they're still plotting their way through the process. I think you give them final site plans to all of them, but they haven't come back in with their final administrative site plan approvals, but they are starting to work through all of their engineering as well. We haven't heard much back from the Taco Bell people. Haven't heard anything from them or from Sanctuary Hills either. That was extended, but they granted preliminary site plan approval. It used to be 1 year and they extended it another 6 months, so that could be part of the reason. With the housing market and things, they might be reassessing a little bit. But other than that, we're just kind of cleaning up a lot of the projects. We have had a few pre-apps for some projects that might be coming your way. I know one's coming in January that will probably interest you, but I'll keep that surprise. I'll leave that as Santa's little surprise for you.
I'm good with that. The only thing that when you talk about Taco Bell, I asked some questions recently about in regards to why they aren't moving forward, and obviously because Myers has to reevaluate their site plan and turn in an amended site plan to sell that 1 acre parcel after they won't do the land division until they know.
Correct.
So there's like I told Zach, I said, how do you force Myers to come in and amend their site plan? The only way they're going to want to do it is if they want to sell the piece.
Right.
So they do very well as a Myers store. That Myers store produces a lot of product that moves in and out of there, way and above a lot of other Myers locations in our area. So they're doing real good with what they do, selling groceries. They got the bucks up there for it now. So they're not in any hurry to even make that land division. So Taco Bell could disappear in a sense.
Interesting.
And Great Lakes Taco is also right now building a taco in Holly, so they may have their focus on other things.
I'm just saying there's no way that we can force them to put something together to amend that plan.
We approached them because we need an easement from Meyer for a sanitary sewer project that we're doing.
That 30-incher?
And, well, it's not quite that big, Tom. It's only 18, but
I got to
pretty big in terms of sewer capacity.
Make sure I don't
mean,
get stuck in there.
I hope the public doesn't get too excited about that. But But they did reach out to us, and it did seem like there was still interest from the Meyer Corporation to split off that 1 acre piece.
Okay.
But I'm sure that they have to go through their process and thing. But
Well, there's somebody else that wants to do something on another parcel of land up there too.
yeah, we haven't heard anything more since
You
the
haven't
pre-app-
heard anything more. Huh?
right since the pre-application meeting. But hey, who knows?
I don't know if they're, I don't know who's under pressure to do what anymore because the financial end has kind of changed recently on stuff. So
And I believe that in speaking with Supervisor Curtis, that the CON committee up in Lansing meets again in January. I think Mr. Curtis will probably be up there again. The CON committee is the hospital. It's
Yeah.
My understanding that Beaumont has now purchased that piece of property over there.
From the Cossacks?
That's my understanding. That's what Mr. Curtis has explained to me. However, I guess if they go to the con committee and they evaluate it and say, yes, we'll look at it again, it could take like a whole nother year for them to go through the process to
They don't
make a
hurry.
determination. So
That's not an easy sell, with a state. They don't hurry on any of that stuff.
but that would
All
be a true hospital or hotel.
That's
as Zach likes to
something
call
I
it,
could
so.
see as really beneficial to the community. I'd like to see that happen here.
Anyway, any other questions regarding development projects or things you see out in the community that I can?
No, you did good.
All right, thank you.
Sir. I appreciate your comments. I think we're going to be ready for adjournment. We're adjourned.